This is Matthias once again from Future Fast Forward. Good morning to you all, good Malaysians, my fellow countrymen. Before I talk about this morning's topic, may I say how grateful and appreciative that all of you have come forward to support me and my national duty to defend our country. Because in a very short time period, I have able to achieve over 120,000 hits to all my video speeches. Thanks to all of you for your support. You've inspired me. Please continue to support me because our fight will end soon and I need all your help and support. As you know, recently, by the announcement of Arukanda, 1MDB is in default. It means our country is in default. Therefore, the credibility, the integrity of our country is at stake. We are at default. This is because of the mismanagement and the corruption of the regime that brought the state affairs into being. There is now total chaos within the criminal Najib leadership bunker in Putrajaya. Total mental breakdown. Total psychotic seizures have taken hold of the entire leadership of UMNO, MKT, Supreme Council. This is very obvious if I may point out to you, fellow citizens of Malaysia. All previous frontline barking dogs are now totally silent, demoralized. You recall those barking dogs, Nazris, Ahmad Mazlan, Azalina, Ismail Sabri, Rahman Dahlan, Kari, Salibrak. They've all remained silent. However, now we see they're scraping the bottom barrel and looking high and low for third-rate barking dogs. And recently one came forward, none other than the idiot Johari Abdul Ghani, Deputy Minister of Finance, who said, and he warned people, to his fellow colleagues in UMNO and the government, please don't talk nonsense, when you're speaking to the Rakyat, don't talk nonsense, because if you do, the social media will attack you, expose you, and go viral. Don't talk nonsense, he says. He was echoed by, another scumbag, third-rate propaganda con artist, the press secretary, the Najib, this Datuk Sri Tunku Safaruddin. Okay? They are all scumbags. You know why I say they're all scumbags? They're third-rate. And they should practice what they preach. Don't talk nonsense. Because this Deputy Finance Minister, Johari Abdul Ghani, said that the dispute between 1MDB, 100% owned company of our country, and the sovereign fund of Abu Dhabi is a mere dispute between two companies. He wasn't even aware that way back in December 2015, 1MDB has defaulted. Scumbag, you understand what defaulted means? You have failed to pay your loan. In the normal principle of law, if you fail to pay the loan, you can be made a bankrupt. Your company can be wound up, liquidated, stupid scumbag. You're speaking nonsense. If you just say, this default is a mere dispute between two companies. Please practice what you preach. Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand, even though you are a Deputy Prime Minister. Okay? In fact, in 2015, in October, Bank Negara has already declared 1MDB in default. That I'll explain later. Okay? But let me pause here and tell you, okay, why our country is staring a total breakdown. Because these scumbags don't understand what's going on. Okay? Why? Because it's so corrupt, been exposed to such an extent, they are totally demoralized. And each and every leader in NKT Supreme Council is mentally stressed out. Empty, zero, kosong, otak is kosong. They are broken, and they go about their duty, their work as zombies. At one time, they behaved like political gangsters, strung like peacock. But now, because of the exposure, the exposés of their crimes, they become hollow, or thunder without any rain. And therefore, they should adhere to the advice of this Johari Abdul Ghani. Shut up! No more nonsense. And we, on our part, Malaysians, to zip their mouth for good. Zip them up. You know why? Because each time they open their mouth, their freaking mouth, filth pours out. Foul-smelling filth pours out of their mouth. Bullshit, horseshit, dark black garbage is thrown out. So my question to you, fellow Malaysians, do you want them? Do you want these liars, these cheaters, this loudmouth garbage to lead us? If not, then please join me to fight them, expose them. Okay? Do not be afraid. We will prevail and we will win. Alright? So let me now go to the meat of today's topic. Our country is in a mess because of the corruption, the fraud, and the theft of our monies. As you know, one MDB borrowed a lot of money, locally and from overseas. When you borrow money from a money lender, from the Along, you sign what we call an IOU. I, full stop, O, full stop, U, IOU. But in more sophisticated borrowings than lending by a company, say for example, when they want to borrow money, they issue an IOU called a bond. B-O-N-D, a bond. So when a company wants money, they issue a bond, which is that IOU, a glorified IOU. And it'll be sold by investment bankers to investors to lend you money, your company, or to what MDB. In order to convince people to lend to the company, all right, they have a prospectus, okay, a book that talks about how great is a company, how strong they are. And in some cases, they'll be rated by rating agencies, okay? So in this document, they have what we call, all right, a representation about the management of the company to induce people to trust the company. Emphasize the word, to induce people to believe that the company is trustworthy. More so, one MDB, a 100% owned company of our Malaysian government, of the Treasury. So listen carefully, because I'm going to read these few words and expose the recklessness, the irresponsibility of the entire government and UMNO leaders that brought the downfall of Malaysia. How? I'll explain to you. But first, let me read to you this statement of representation of integrity of one MDB. One MDB has a stringent risk management control function with a board of directors holding ultimate accountability. I repeat, with a board of directors holding ultimate accountability for the risks and related control environment and being responsible for approving and reviewing risk policies and methodologies. The Board of Directors is supported in this task by a board of delegated committees for reviewing and challenging risk information, which in turn are supported by a risk management department, along with strategic business and support units. 1MDB has stringent quote, Chinese wall unquote, and whistleblowers policies in light of sensitivity of its projects and investment. Therefore, this statement I read to you suggests that 1MDB is honest, credible, have responsible management that will guard integrity, so that when you lend money, the money will be repaid. No risk at all. But as you know, after the presentation by the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee, PAC, on 7th April, exposing the nonsense, the mismanagement, the fraud, the crimes of 1MDB, the entire board has resigned. Am I right? Recall that? The entire board has resigned. So therefore, the people now in charge of 1MDB is the CEO Arukanda and Najib, the Prime Minister. Because under Article 117 of the company, he has sole responsibility, absolute responsibility for everything. He approves, he signs, everything is one person, the Prime Minister. Okay. And now we are told 1MDB has defaulted. Big fight with the Abu Dhabi sovereign fund, accused by a government entity. We have to take that accusation seriously, that 1MDB has failed to perform its obligations to Abu Dhabi, defaulted, as a result of which the loans and interest cannot be paid. But let's pause it for a while. This default did not happen on the 18th of April, last week. But in fact, on October the 9th, 2015, Bank Negara has issued a statement. You scumbags, CEO, members of board of directors, Prime Minister, in charge of 1MDB, you have contravened the Exchange Control Act. Therefore, you must repay the loan. And this is a statement, right? I'm reading to you, reported by Astro Awani on the 9th of October. So you can't say it's a misrepresentation by some foreign press. Astro Awani reported this statement, 9th October 2015. And I quote to you, word for word of the Bank Negara statement. Quote, as an investigative agency, the bank is duty bound to conduct its investigation with the highest professional care and diligence. The bank at all times expects full and accurate disclosure of information by applicants in considering any application under the Exchange Control Act. On its part, the bank concluded that permissions required under the Exchange Control Act for 1MDB's investments abroad were obtained based on keywords, based on inaccurate or without complete disclosure of material information relevant to the bank assessment of 1MDB's application. In simple English, you scumbag UMNO idiots, leaders in Supreme Council, you Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Deputy Minister of Finance, Bank Negara by this statement says, you lied. Tamos, when you apply for permission to send money from Malaysia to overseas for the 1MDB joint venture Petro Saudi, when you converted the 5 billion sukuk into 1 billion US dollar to send to 1MDB Petrol Saudi joint venture, you have to seek permission from Bank Negara. You have to provide and disclose accurate information. What Bank Negara says that you give inaccurate and without complete disclosure of material information relevant to the bank assessment of your application. So therefore, when they approve the remittance of 1.83 billion, which now Bank Negara demanded that you must pay back in October 9, 2015, you lied, understand? In Queen's English, incomplete disclosure, inaccurate information, in plain pasar malam language. You tipu, you bohong, you lied, L-I-E-D, lied. And in law, when you lie, you misrepresent, and the representation is fraudulent, as it was fraudulent in this case, there is a material, breach of the terms of the agreement. There is a material misrepresentation to the bondholders, those who lend you money, that thought you were trustworthy. But now it was disclosed by Bank Negara, you lied, you scumbags, you lied. And you have contravened this paragraph, risk management, where you guarantee that what you say is the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, but you lied. This is the title of the paragraph, strong risk management. You lied, you scumbags. And by lying, Bank Negara says you are in default. Yet, the Attorney General says, no crimes. Fraudulent misrepresentation is a crime under the penal code. But he says, no crime. Never mind. Because of his action, Arukanda, the board of directors, became very bold, They began doing things, right, which no other company would do, and lie, giving rise to this default, this quarrel with 1MDB. And guess what? Compounding the error, the chairman of PAC, the Public Accounts Committee, the scumbag UMNO leader, Hassan Arifin, without the knowledge of fellow members of the committee, deleted 2 sentences from the report. You know why he did that? This scumbag, another liar, another cheater. Because he wanted to cover up the crimes of the Prime Minister, of UMNO leadership. Because it was established that monies, this 1.83 billion, which was obtained by 1MD through lying to Bank Negara, instead of sending the money, instead of sending the money to the joint venture company account, was sent to JP Morgan and then to Albrecht's Coats, to a company called Good Star Limited, controlled by this China Kwai, this gangster, this financial rapist, Joe Low. So, this cheat, this liar, this scumbag, UMNO scumbag, delete the 2 sentences and say, we had to delete it because that statement was not very clear, subject to investigation. How can we not be clear, right, when Bank Negara has issued a statement and confirmed that the payment of this money did not go to the joint venture company's account? When the company, there's no association with the joint venture. And later, it transpired that Good Star Limited has no dealings or part of the joint venture, is owned by Joe Low. And yet, the purpose of PAC is whatever findings are made will be recommended to the police to investigate. And the IGP says, right, we will only investigate whatever has been disclosed in the PAC report or requested by PAC to be investigated. So if this fact is removed, IGP will find excuse not to investigate. Okay? So who is trying to cover up? Another scumbag. Another UMNO leader. Can you believe it? UMNO! You're rotten to the core. You have no shame. Sins after sins you have committed. No shame. Ayo. Terrible. I mean, I'm lost for words, you know. Do you know? Even lawyers have been, are part of this fraud. As a digression, this Masali lawyer, Timothy Buckland, from the firm of White & Case, in the email says, don't worry, send this money by this route as a means to divert the money. Okay. He confessed in an email. Remember, at one time, they said all these emails in the hands of the Age newspaper were forgery, were tampered, forged documents. And they demanded that these documents be handed over to the police to investigate. And then one so-called Masali expert came to say, we have going to examine all these emails, all right, and see whether it's tampered or not. To today, after all these months of investigation, IGP, the police force, no one has said any of those emails have been tampered or forged. So there you are. The truth's out there. No more covering up, please. Enough is enough. Okay? Enough is enough. Now, before I go on in more detail, let me say to you, I've never been so ashamed of our government than today. Why? Because the Economist magazine, world famous, said with the title, Najib, the global benchmark for anti-corruption investigation. Oh my God. This is the title. Najib, the global benchmark for anti-corruption investigation. Meaning, the way our institutions are conducting the investigation is so teruk, so broken. It should be a benchmark for other countries not to follow. A teacher by negative example, There are two types of examples, right? Teacher by positive example, meaning that you want a teacher who do good things to inspire people, follow their good practice, okay, their good behavior, their good conduct, be inspired by that. But if you're a teacher by negative example, it's a warning, red flag. These are scumbags, crooks, criminals. Don't follow their method. So now, the whole world knows that they use the word Najib, is the benchmark. And the joke is, everyone in UMNO, Kyrie, especially Kyrie, the young punk, another, right, do-gooder, now very silent, Nasri Azalinas, KPI, my God, Key Performance Index, to so-called upgrade Malaysia. Their KPI must be a negative KPI. Because if there's genuine KPI, you dumbos, you scumbags, you would insist proper investigation, proper conduct, truth, integrity, and devoid of any fraudulent misrepresentation. That should be KPI, isn't it? Why don't you UMNO dumb scumbags impose a KPI on the police force, on on the IGP? Why don't you impose a KPI on the Attorney General to ensure pristine, clean investigation so that we become the benchmark for the correct investigation against corruption? As opposed to now, Malaysia is a benchmark for negative corruption investigation. Fellow Malaysians, let me say this to you. Don't forgive them. Huh? And don't forget. Hold on to this truth, this expose. Never give up. Because we do that, our children, our grandchildren will finish, will be wiped out. Okay? Now, let me come to you what we have today. This H newspaper. In this H newspaper, there's an interview of Arukanda. And he said, in this interview, fraud has been committed. I would like to quote to you the actual words, right? Okay? First of all, he said, right, I'm very angry what actually happened. That's why I tendered my resignation to the board, but he also accepted. This is not what I signed up for. The issues here are not mine. I'm very tired. I'm doing over and above what I assigned to do. Okay? Now, you know why he's so tired? He's so fed up. Because he said, there's fraud. And I go to you. When he was asked a question, when you talk of fraud, you look like you were on the defensive. Yes. Quote, because frankly, we've explored all options. The fraud part I was referring to is the Swiss AG, Attorney General, who said there is possible fraud. I need to look at all the possibilities. So my best case scenario is a corporate liability of IPIC and ABA. Because one MDB dealt with the MD of IPIC, chairman of ABA, and CEO of ABA. So the actions of the corporate officers should bind the corporate. It's not like we are dealing with the janitor. Another possibility is the fraud by the two, Mohammed Husseini and Karam Kubaisi. Then a third and worst case scenario is if it was fraud with collaboration from this side, Malaysia. See, he made reference to the investigation of Swiss Attorney General. Yet Abu Hassan, Karuddin Abu Hassan Dato, my client, first accused, my colleague, and I have been charged under Rosmah for going to Switzerland. Dato Karuddin Abu Hassan brought documents, sealed documents, and gave to the Attorney General to help investigate the corruption and the fraud of one MDB. Yet we are charged for Rosmah, under Rosmah, as terrorists, sabotaging the Banking and Financial Institutions Act and destroying the economy of Malaysia. And here, Arukanda says, alright, the AG has conducted investigation as to the fraud. And it's likely that people in one MDB are involved. There are also other issues. Okay? So horrendous, it's impossible to believe. Now, as I say, if the board of directors have resigned, who is running one MDB? Who gave permission to CEO Arukanda to be in default, to not to pay? It must be Najib. Because under Article 117, he's solely in charge. He has made some statements so horrendous that I would not even bother to say, all right, in this brief speech to you, because it requires a lot of legal arguments, and it's not necessary. Let me say to you, trust me when I say, no lawyer with experience would allow what Arukanda say in his press statement and say or agree that what he say is legally correct. He has misled the public in this interview. And the reporters of age may not have the experience to expose the very subtle lies and misrepresentation that Arukanda made. I will do that in another speech later to expose the subterfuge by Arukanda. In conclusion, let me say this. It's about time. IGP, arrest him. Arukanda. Arrest the Prime Minister. Arrest those leaders in UMNO who are now covering up the crime, especially after the fact. Okay? It's about time. Okay? And don't come after us lah. Huh? Do your job. Follow the KPI. Because now there is a KPI. A negative KPI. We are now benchmarked for how not to conduct corruption investigation. And you are the police. You are the head of the police. Attorney General, you're the head of the Attorney Chambers. Can you please do something? Or else, right? Shame. Shame on all of you. Especially UMNO leaders. The Supreme Council. You are disgusting. Scumbags and criminals. Nothing can, describe you but one word: criminals. You disgrace our country. You allow our country, 1MDB, to be default. And this man says, Arukanda says, right, it's okay. Because it's only a company. Likewise, Johari Abdul Ghani, it's only a company dispute. Can you imagine a Deputy Minister of Finance making all the noise and the Minister of Finance, Prime Minister, in elegant silence, avoiding all statements, hoping he will get with it. Lastly, I have to say this. His wife, Rosmah, says, be patient, Najib. Allah is testing you. That is blasphemy. To invoke Allah, that Allah will be patient with you. He's testing you when you are the criminal. Please, don't insult the intelligence of Muslims. Don't insult the intelligence of all God-fearing people who believe in God Almighty. Please, don't listen to your wife, Rosmah. Najib, let me advise you. She advise you, be patient. Allah's testing you. I'm advising you now. Najib, don't listen to your wife. She's leading you a road of no return. Okay? You're going to commit suicide if you go this path. You're bringing the country down, destroying the country. You still have one small little chance. On your knees, pray to God for forgiveness. Surrender to His will. And beg for forgiveness for your sins and transgression. And then move out of our way. And bring along all your UMNO baggage. The members of NKT who are in the cover-up. Move out. Stay out. Keep out. And leave us alone so that we can rebuild Malaysia to its former glory. With that, dear Malaysians, I pause here and I hope I make clear to you the issues of the default of 1MDB. Good afternoon and thank you once again for your support.